Jake Morrison opened his eyes slowly. His head hurt badly and everything looked blurry. The room around him was white and cold. Metal walls surrounded him on all sides. A strange blue light came from the ceiling. This was not his ship. This was not Earth. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy. His uniform was gone. Instead, he wore a gray jumpsuit that felt rough against his skin. Jake touched his head and felt dried blood in his hair. Memories came back to him piece by piece. 3 days ago, he was on Kepler 442B with his team. Danny Rodriguez, Lisa Carter, and Kevin Stone were with him. They were watching the enemy ships from a hidden spot on a hill. Their job was simple. Count the ships. Report back to Earth Command. Get out safely, but something went wrong. The aliens found them first. Plasma bolts flew through the air like deadly lightning. Danny shouted for everyone to run. Lisa grabbed the radio to call for help. Kevin covered their escape with his rifle. Jake remembered running toward the landing zone where their ship waited. Then everything went black. A weapon hit him from behind. When he woke up, he was here. Jake stood up and walked around his cell. It was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. The walls felt warm when he touched them. There was a bed that came out of the wall. A small sink-in. The corner gave him water when he pressed a button. The water tasted strange, but it was clean. The door had no handle. It was solid metal with a small window at the top. Jake was not tall enough to see through it clearly. He could hear sounds from outside, footsteps, voices speaking in a language he did not know. Sometimes he heard screaming from other cells. He was a prisoner, but of who? Jake sat on the bed and thought carefully. He knew about the Corvani Empire from his briefings. They were reptile-like aliens who conquered other planets. They were strong and fast. They thought all other species were weak. Most importantly, they knew very little about humans. This was good for Jake. Let him think he was weak. Let them think he was just another soldier. They did not need to know the truth. They did not need to know he was Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of SEAL Team 6. They did not need to know about his 12 years of special training. They did not need to know what he could do. The door opened with a loud sound. 2 tall figures walked in. Jake had never seen Corvani before, but he knew these were them. They stood 8 feet tall. Their skin was dark green with scales. Their eyes were yellow and looked like a snake's eyes. Sharp teeth filled their mouths when they spoke. The first one pointed at Jake and said something in their language. The second one laughed. It was a cold sound. They both carried weapons that looked like rifles but with glowing parts. Jake stayed sitting on his bed. He looked down at the floor and made his shoulders drop. He wanted to look scared and weak. Inside, he was studying everything. The way they moved, how they held their weapons, where their eyes looked, what made them feel safe. One of the guards kicked Jake's leg to make him stand up. Jake stood slowly, still looking at the floor. The guard pushed him toward the door. Jake stumbled a little on purpose. The guards laughed again. They walked through long hallways. The ship was huge. Jake counted his steps and remembered each turn. The walls were covered with lights and screens showing alien writing. Other prisoners walked by with guards. Most looked broken and hopeless. Jake saw humans among the prisoners. A woman with short brown hair caught his eye. She wore the same gray jumpsuit as him. When their eyes met for a second, she nodded slightly. Jake nodded back. He was not alone. The guards brought him to a large room with many tables. Food was being served from machines in the walls. The smell was strange but not bad. Jake's stomach hurt from hunger. He had not eaten in days. They pushed him toward a table where other prisoners sat. Most were aliens he did not recognize. But 3 were human. The woman from the hallway sat across from him. 2 men sat nearby. All of them looked thin and tired. The woman whispered very quietly. "Elena Rodriguez?" "Cargo ship captain. Been here 4 months," Jake whispered back. "Jake." 3 days. One of the men leaned closer. "Ben Clark, Marine, 6 weeks here?" The other man nodded. "Chris Hill, engineer from the mining station, 2 months." Elena looked around to make sure no guards were watching. They think we are weak. Good. Stay alive that way. Jake nodded but said nothing more. He ate the strange food and listened. Elena told him about the prison in whispers. There were 300 prisoners from 12 different species. The Corvani used some for work, others for fighting. Some just disappeared. Fighting? Jake asked. Arena, Elena said. For their entertainment. Most who go don't come back. After eating, the guards took Jake back to his cell. As he walked, he saw more of the ship, guard posts, camera locations, where the weapons were stored. His mind created a map of everything. Back in his cell, Jake lay on his bed and closed his eyes. But he was not sleeping. He was thinking, planning. The Corvani had made a mistake. They thought they caught a regular soldier. They had no idea what they really had, Jake remembered. His training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, seer training had prepared him for this. But this was different. This was not just about staying alive until rescue came. This was about learning everything he could about the enemy. Over the next week, Jake learned the prison routine. Guards changed every 8 hours. Food came 3 times a day. Exercise was allowed once a day in a large room with other prisoners. Lights went dim for 6 hours each day for sleep time. During exercise, Jake moved slowly and looked weak. But he was really studying the other prisoners, learning who could be trusted, who was strong enough to help, who knew useful things about the ship. Elena became his main source of information. She had been free on the ship for 2 weeks before they put her in prison. She knew where important rooms were. She knew about the guard schedules. She knew which aliens might help them. Ben and Chris were good soldiers, but they were broken. Months of prison had made them give up hope. Jake worked to bring back their fighting spirit. He did this carefully, without the guards noticing. On his 7th day, something changed. The guards came for him during sleep time. This was not normal. They brought him to a different part of the ship. The walls here were fancier. Important. Aliens worked here. They pushed him into a room with a large chair. Machines surrounded the chair. Wires and tubes hung from the ceiling. Jake knew what this was. An interrogation room. A new alien walked in. This one was different from the guards, smaller, but with smarter eyes. He wore a uniform with marks that showed high rank. When he spoke, his voice was calm but dangerous. I am Chief Interrogator Vaxim, he said in perfect English. You will tell me about human military strength. Jake looked confused. I don't know much, I was just a scout. Vaxim smiled, showing sharp teeth. We shall see, but Jake was ready. Let the games begin. The Corvani thought they were interrogating a simple soldier. They had no idea they were about to face one of Earth's most elite warriors. And Jake planned to use every second of their mistake to gather the intelligence that could save his world. The interrogation lasted 3 hours. Vaxim used machines that sent pain through Jake's body. He asked the same questions over and over. How many ships did Earth have? Where were the military bases? What weapons did humans use? Jake gave simple answers. He acted confused and scared. He told small lies mixed with some truth. He said Earth only had a few hundred ships. He said human weapons were weak. He said most humans were afraid to fight. Vaxim grew frustrated, but Jake could see doubt in his eyes. The interrogator expected humans to break quickly. Jake's resistance surprised him. But Jake was careful not to seem too strong. He cried out when the pain came. He begged them to stop. He played the part of a broken soldier perfectly. After 3 days of questions, they brought Jake back to his cell. Elena was waiting during exercise time. She had heard rumors from other prisoners. They're planning something big for you, she whispered while they walked in circles around the exercise room. The guards are excited about it. What kind of something? Jake asked. Arena combat. They want to show off by making a human fight their champions. Jake nodded but felt his heart beat faster. This could be his chance. In combat, he could show some of his real skills without revealing everything. But he had to be very careful. 2 days later, the guards came for him again. This time they brought him to a preparation room. They gave him armor that barely fit. It was made for larger aliens. The metal plates hung loose on his human frame. They handed him a simple sword and a small shield. Jake held the weapons awkwardly. He had trained with many weapons, but he made it look like he had never held a sword before. The guards laughed and made jokes in their language. They led him through a tunnel that echoed with loud sounds, cheering, screaming, music. At the end of the tunnel, bright lights hit his eyes. Jake stepped into the largest room he had ever seen. The arena was huge. Thousands of aliens filled seats that went up like a mountain. Most were Corvani, but Jake saw other species too. All of them were shouting and pointing at him. The noise was like thunder. The floor of the arena was covered in sand. Dark stains showed where blood had been spilled. Weapons and pieces of armor were scattered around from previous fights. Bones from different creatures lay in the corners, high above. The crowd, Jake saw a special viewing area. Important-looking Corvani sat there in fancy chairs. One of them stood up and raised his arms. The crowd became quiet. "I am Admiral Zektar," the alien announced. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "Today we show you the weakness of the human species. Watch as their so-called warrior falls before Corvani's strength." The crowd roared with approval. Jake looked around and acted nervous. He gripped his sword with shaking hands. But inside he was studying everything: the arena floor, the exits, the distance to the viewing area. How the crowd reacted. A gate opened on the far side of the arena. Something large walked out. Jake had never seen anything like it. The creature stood 9 feet tall and was covered in thick scales that looked like armor. Its arms were longer than its legs. Claws extended from its fingers. Scars covered its body like a map of old battles. "Grixon!" the crowd chanted. "Grixon! Grixon!" The creature raised its arms and roared. The sound echoed through the arena and made Jake's ears hurt. Grixon had fought here many times. Jake could tell by how it moved. Confident, experienced, deadly. Admiral Zektar spoke again. "Grixon has never lost a battle. Today he faces the human. Place your bets on how quickly the mammal dies." Laughter filled the arena. Jake heard aliens calling out numbers. They were betting on how many seconds he would survive. Most bets were under 30 seconds. A horn sounded. The fight began. Grixon moved faster than Jake expected. The creature charged across the sand with surprising speed. Jake barely got his shield up in time. Grixon's claws hit the metal with a sound like breaking glass. The force of the hit knocked Jake backward. He rolled in the sand and came up on one knee. The crowd cheered. This was what they wanted to see. The human being overpowered. Jake played his part. He looked scared and confused. He held his sword wrong. He stumbled when he tried to move. Grixon circled him like a predator playing with its food. For the first few minutes, Jake let Grixon dominate the fight. He blocked attacks. Clumsily, he fell down twice. He lost his shield when Grixon knocked it from his hand. The crowd was having a great time watching the human suffer, but Jake was learning. Every attack taught him something about his opponent. Grixon was strong, but not very smart. The creature used the same moves over and over. It always attacked from the same angles. It got tired quickly because it used too much energy. Most importantly, Jake found Grixon's weak spots. The scales on its neck were thinner. Its left knee had an old injury that made it favor the right leg. Its eyes could not track fast movements very well. Jake decided it was time to end this. Grixon charged again, expecting to finish the fight. But this time Jake moved differently. Instead of backing away, he stepped forward and to the side. His sword moved in a perfect arc. The blade found the gap between Grixon's neck scales. The creature stopped running. Blood flowed from the wound. Grixon looked confused. How had the weak human hurt him? Jake's movements changed completely. Gone was the clumsy, scared soldier. Now he moved like water flowing around rocks. Every step had purpose. Every strike hit exactly where he aimed. Grixon tried to grab Jake with his long arms. Jake ducked under the grab and struck the creature's injured knee. Grixon fell to one side. Jake was already moving to strike again. The arena became quiet. The crowd could not believe what they were seeing. The human was winning. Jake used techniques he had learned in years of training. He struck pressure points. That made Grixon's limbs go numb. He used the creature's size against it, making it fall off balance. He turned Grixon's own strength into weakness. In less than 2 minutes, the great champion was on the ground. Grixon tried to get up, but his body would not obey. Jake stood over him with the sword pointed at the creature's throat. The arena was completely silent now. Even Admiral Zektar had stopped smiling. Jake looked up at the viewing area. He made eye contact with the Admiral. For just a moment, he let his real personality show. The Admiral saw something in those human eyes that made him uncomfortable. This was not the broken prisoner they had captured, but Jake quickly returned to his act. He looked surprised by his own victory. He dropped the sword and backed away from Grixon as if he was afraid of what he had done. Admiral Zektar stood up. His voice was angry now. "Luck," he announced. "The human got lucky. Bring out 3 fighters. Let us see how lucky he can be." 3 gates opened. 3 more creatures entered the arena. Each one was different, but all were deadly. The crowd began cheering again. Surely the human could not defeat 3 opponents. Jake picked up his sword. He looked tired and scared. But inside he was calculating. 3 opponents meant new challenges. It also meant new opportunities to learn about Corvani fighting methods. The horn sounded again. Jake was ready to show them that human luck could be very dangerous indeed. The 3 fighters moved toward Jake from different directions. One looked like a giant insect with 4 arms. Another was covered in spikes and rolled like a ball. The third had wings and flew above the arena floor. Jake spun in a circle, trying to watch all 3 at once. He made his movements look panicked and desperate. The crowd began cheering again. 3 against 1 seemed like better odds for entertainment. The flying creature attacked first. It dove down with claws extended. Jake rolled to the side, but not fast enough. The claws raked across his shoulder, tearing his armor and drawing blood. The crowd roared with approval. The spike-covered creature rolled toward Jake like a massive ball. Jake jumped, but his timing looked off. The creature clipped his legs and sent him tumbling across the sand. More cheers from the audience. The insect fighter moved in with all 4 arms swinging weapons. Jake barely blocked the attacks with his sword. Each strike drove him backward. His defense looked desperate and sloppy. For 5 minutes, Jake let the 3 creatures push him around the arena. He took several small wounds. His armor was dented and torn. He fell down multiple times. The crowd was loving every second of it, but Jake was studying his opponents just like he had with Grixon. The flying creature always attacked from the same angle. The spike-covered one could not change direction quickly when it rolled. The insect fighter got tired fast because it used all 4 arms at once. When Jake was ready, he acted like he was too hurt to continue. He dropped to one knee and held his side as if in great pain. All 3 creatures moved in for the final attack. The flying one dove down first. Jake waited until the last second, then grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into the creature's eyes. As it crashed to the ground blinded, Jake's sword found its heart. The spike-covered creature rolled toward him. Instead of dodging, Jake planted his feet and caught it with both hands. Using its own momentum, he redirected it toward the insect fighter. The collision sent both creatures sprawling. Jake finished them quickly and efficiently. His sword work was precise and deadly. In less than 3 minutes, all 3 opponents lay still on the arena floor. The silence in the arena was even deeper this time. Jake looked around at thousands of shocked faces. He made sure to look surprised by his own success, but he could see doubt growing in their eyes. Admiral Zektar was no longer amused. He stood up and pointed at Jake. "Take him back to his cell, now." The guards moved quickly to surround Jake. They were more careful this time. More weapons were pointed at him. They had begun to understand that this human was dangerous. Back in his cell, Jake waited. He knew what would come next. They would want answers about how he had won those fights. They would ask harder questions. They would use stronger methods. He was right. The next morning, Vaxim came for him personally. The interrogator's calm manner was gone. His yellow eyes showed anger and confusion. "What are you?" Vaxim demanded as soon as they were in the interrogation room. Jake looked confused. I don't understand, I'm just a soldier. Soldiers do not defeat arena champions. Soldiers do not move the way you moved out there. I got lucky, you said so yourself. Vaxim activated the pain machines. The electricity hit Jake harder than before. He screamed and writhed in the chair. But when the pain stopped, he looked at Vaxim with clear eyes. Luck does not explain skill, Vaxim said. Tell me your real rank. Tell me your real training. Jake gave the same answers as before. He was a reconnaissance soldier. He had basic training, he was scared and wanted to go home. But now he added something new to his responses. Why are you doing this to us? Jake asked between torture sessions. Humans never attacked your people. Your species will be conquered soon, Vaxim replied. It is better if you accept this now. How many ships are you sending? Jake asked, making his voice sound worried. Vaxim smiled. Enough, your primitive weapons cannot stop us. Over the next several days, Jake turned the interrogations around. He asked questions that seemed to come from fear and curiosity. Vaxim, proud of his species' power, began to answer them. Jake learned that the Corvani fleet had 500 warships ready for the invasion. They planned to attack 12 human colonies at the same time. They believed the war would be over in less than a month. Most importantly, Jake learned about their communication systems. All Corvani ships used quantum transmitters that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. The flagship carried the master control for the entire network. When will the attack begin? Jake asked during one session. Soon, Vaxim said. Our fleet is already moving into position. Jake filed away every piece of information, ship numbers, attack plans, technology details. His memory had been trained to hold tactical data perfectly. Even under torture, he missed nothing, but Vaxim was learning too. Each day, the interrogator grew more suspicious. Jake's resistance was too strong for an ordinary soldier. His questions were too smart. His recovery from torture was too fast. You are not what you claim to be, Vaxim said. After a week of sessions, I will find the truth. The interrogator began using psychological torture instead of just physical pain. He brought recordings of human prisoners being executed. He showed videos of Earth cities that the Corvani planned to destroy. He described in detail what would happen to human civilians. Jake reacted with appropriate horror and grief, but inside his anger was growing cold and focused. These aliens planned to murder billions of innocent people. They thought humans were weak prey. They had no idea what they were about to face. During exercise periods, Jake shared some of what he learned with Elena and the other prisoners. He was careful not to reveal too much, but he began preparing them for action. How do you know all this? Elena asked quietly as they walked around the exercise room. I listened carefully during questioning, Jake replied. We need to be ready? Ready for what? To get word to Earth to warn them what's coming. Ben and Chris, the other human prisoners, had noticed changes in Jake. His defeats in the arena had looked real, but something about them felt wrong to trained military eyes. Who are you really? Ben asked one day. Jake looked at the Marine carefully. Ben had been broken by months of captivity, but Jake could see the warrior still lived inside him. Someone who can get us out of here, he said finally, over the following days. Jake began rebuilding the fighting spirit in his fellow prisoners. He did it slowly and carefully, a word of encouragement here, a reminder of their training there. Small acts of defiance that the guards did not notice. He also made contact with non-human prisoners who hated the Corvani. There was a Velfin scientist named Quinn who had been studying human military tactics before his capture. There was a Corvani engineer named Korvik who opposed his own government's wars. Jake realized he had more than just intelligence now. He had the beginning of a resistance network inside the ship, but he needed more time to organize them. He needed to learn more about the ship's layout and security. Most importantly, he needed access to that quantum transmitter. The information he had gathered was useless unless he could get it to Earth Command. As Vaxim prepared for another interrogation session, Jake prepared for the next phase of his mission. The Corvani thought they were breaking down a simple human soldier. They had no idea they were teaching one of Earth's most elite warriors everything he needed to know to stop their invasion. The real war was about to begin. Jake had been planning the escape for 2 weeks. Every detail was mapped out in his mind. Every guard rotation was memorized. Every camera location was noted. Tonight, during the ship's sleep cycle, he would make his move. The plan was simple, but dangerous. First, escape his cell. Second, free the other prisoners who could help. Third, reach the armory to get weapons. Fourth, fight his way to the quantum transmitter. Fifth, send Earth's military leaders everything he had learned about the invasion. If he succeeded, Earth would be ready. If he failed, billions of humans would die. Jake waited until the lights dimmed for sleep time. The guard rotation would change in exactly 18 minutes. That gave him a small window when fewer guards were watching the prison levels. He had been working on his cell door for days. The lock was electronic, but it had a manual override hidden behind a small panel. Jake had noticed it during his first week. He had been slowly loosening the screws with a piece of metal from his food tray. Tonight, the panel came off easily. Jake reached inside and found the manual release. The door opened with a soft click. The hallway was empty. Jake moved like a shadow, staying close to the walls where the security cameras could not see him. His bare feet made no sound on the metal floor. Elena's cell was 3 doors down. Jake opened it the same way he had opened his own. She was awake and waiting. "Time to go?" she whispered. Jake nodded. "Get Ben and Chris. Meet me at the armory in 5 minutes." Elena moved toward the other cells while Jake headed for the guard station. One guard was there, half asleep at his post. Jake approached from behind and put the guard to sleep with a sleeper hold. The alien dropped without making a sound. Jake took the guard's keycard and weapon. The plasma rifle felt strange in his hands, but he understood how it worked. Point and shoot. Simple enough. The armory was 2 levels up. Jake used the maintenance shafts to avoid the main corridors. Elena had shown him this route during one of their exercise periods. She had explored much of the ship during her first weeks of freedom. Elena, Ben, and Chris were waiting when Jake reached the armory. The door was locked, but the guard's keycard opened it. Inside were weapons from dozens of different species. Jake found human weapons that had been taken from other prisoners. "Take only what you can carry," Jake whispered as he handed out rifles and ammunition. "We need to move fast." Ben and Chris looked different now. Having weapons in their hands reminded them who they used to be: Marines, soldiers, warriors. Jake's real target was 3 levels higher. The communication center where the quantum transmitter was located. But first he needed to free one more prisoner. Korvik, the Corvani engineer, was kept in a special cell away from the others. His own people considered him a traitor for opposing the war. Jake needed his help to access the ship's computer systems. The special detention area had more guards. Jake counted 4 of them patrolling the corridor. He signaled for the others to wait while he dealt with them. Jake moved like smoke through the shadows. The first guard never saw him coming. A quick strike to the neck, and the alien was unconscious. Jake caught the body and lowered it silently to the floor. The second guard heard something and turned around. Jake was already moving. The guard reached for his weapon, but Jake was faster. Another precise strike, and the second guard fell. The third and fourth guards were together. This was harder. Jake waited until they separated, then struck both in quick succession. His SEAL training made him deadly in close combat. All 4 guards were down in less than 30 seconds. Jake found Korvik's cell and opened it. The Corvani engineer was surprised to see a human prisoner free and armed. "You are the arena fighter," Korvik said in accented English. "I am. Will you help us stop this war?" Korvik looked at the unconscious guards. "You did this alone?" "I had help. Will you help us?" The engineer nodded. "My people are wrong to attack yours. Yes, I will help." The group moved toward the communication center. Jake led the way, using his mental map of the ship. Elena covered their rear. Ben and Chris watched the sides. Korvik stayed in the middle, protected by the others. They encountered more guards on the way. Each time, Jake handled them quickly and quietly. His training made him far more dangerous than the Corvani realized. They were used to prisoners who were broken and hopeless, not elite special forces operatives. The communication center was heavily guarded. Jake counted 8 guards at various posts. This would require a different approach. "Can you access the computer systems from here?" Jake asked Korvik, pointing to a maintenance terminal in a side corridor. The engineer examined the terminal. "Yes, but I need 15 minutes to break the security codes." "You'll have them," Jake promised. Jake positioned his team carefully. Elena and Ben took the left side. Chris covered the right. Jake would create a distraction to draw the guards away from their posts. Jake set off an alarm in the detention area. They had just left. The sound echoed through the ship. Half the guards at the communication center ran toward the alarm. Thinking prisoners were escaping from the wrong location, that left 4 guards. Jake moved against them while they were confused and distracted. Ben and Chris joined the fight from their positions. Elena provided covering fire. The fight was intense but brief. The guards were strong, but they had never faced trained human soldiers working together. In 3 minutes, the communication center was secured. Korvik worked frantically at the main console while Jake gathered the intelligence data. Ship positions, attack schedules, fleet strengths, weapons capabilities. Everything Earth's military needed to prepare for the invasion. "Almost ready," Korvik announced. "The transmitter is charging." Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Their escape had been discovered. Jake could hear running footsteps and shouting voices getting closer. "How much longer?" Jake asked. 2 minutes for full power," Korvik replied. Heavy footsteps echoed. In the corridor outside, a voice Jake recognized shouted orders in the Corvani language. Admiral Zektar had come personally to stop them. The door exploded inward. Admiral Zektar entered with a squad of his best guards. The Admiral was bigger than the others, with cybernetic implants that made him even more dangerous. "You!" Zektar pointed at Jake. "I knew you were not what you claimed to be." Jake stepped forward, placing himself between the Admiral and the transmitter. "Let my people go. This is between us." Zektar laughed. "Your people will all die when we conquer your pathetic species. But you will die here, now, by my own hand." The Admiral charged forward with inhuman speed. His cybernetic legs moved like pistons. His enhanced arms swung with crushing force. Jake barely dodged the first attack, but Jake had been studying the Admiral during his time in captivity. He knew Zektar's movements, his preferences, his weaknesses. The cybernetics made him stronger, but also more predictable. Jake used the Admiral's momentum against him. When Zektar charged, Jake stepped aside and struck at the connection points where flesh met machine. When the Admiral swung his enhanced fists, Jake was already moving to counterattack. The fight ranged across the communication center. Zektar's raw power was immense, but Jake's training and intelligence gave him the advantage. He turned the Admiral's strength into weakness, his speed into clumsiness. "Transmitter ready," Korvik shouted over the sound of battle. Jake dove toward the console while Zektar was off balance. His fingers flew over the controls, sending the compressed data burst toward Earth. The quantum transmitter hummed with power, then fired. The intelligence was away. Earth Command would receive it in minutes. The invasion could be stopped. Zektar roared with rage and lunged at Jake one final time. Jake was ready. He stepped into the attack and struck at the Admiral's primary cybernetic power source. Sparks flew as the enhancement systems failed. The mighty Admiral collapsed, his cybernetics smoking and useless. Jake looked around the communication center. His team was alive but wounded. The ship's alarms were deafening. Soon more guards would arrive, but the mission was complete. Earth would be ready for the Corvani invasion. Jake had turned what should have been humanity's greatest defeat into their salvation. The real victory was yet to come. More guards poured into the communication center. Jake and his team were surrounded. Elena had been hit in the arm by plasma fire. Chris was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Ben was limping but still fighting. Korvik worked frantically to keep the transmitter systems online. Jake made a decision that would change everything. It was time to stop pretending. He activated the ship's internal communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor, every room, every deck of the massive vessel. Attention all Corvani personnel. This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, United States Navy SEAL Team 6, serial number 7823 Delta Niner. I am not the simple soldier you believed you captured. The guards in the room stopped shooting. They looked confused. Even Admiral Zektar, lying wounded on the floor, stared at Jake with new understanding. Jake continued his broadcast. For the past 3 weeks, you have been interrogating and torturing one of Earth's most elite Special Forces operatives. You have given me access to your ship, your systems, and your invasion plans. You have made a very serious mistake. Throughout the ship, Corvani officers and crew members listened to the human's words. Some laughed. Others began to feel worried. My training includes 12 years of unconventional warfare, underwater demolitions, counterterrorism operations, and deep reconnaissance. I have completed over 40 classified missions in hostile territory. I have been trained to resist torture, gather intelligence, and conduct sabotage operations behind enemy lines. Admiral Zektar tried to stand up but his damaged cybernetics. Wold not respond. Impossible, he whispered. You are just a scout, a weak mammal. Jake looked down at the Admiral. I am a Navy SEAL. We are not scouts. We are hunters. And you have been my prey since the moment you captured me. Jake's voice carried to every part of the ship as he continued. Your intelligence about human military capabilities is completely wrong. Earth's defense strategy is not based on large fleets or massive armies. It is based on small unit tactics, special operations, and asymmetric warfare. He paused to let this sink in. You expected to find a species of weak beings who would surrender quickly. Instead, you found a species that produces warriors like me. Humans who can turn your own strength against you. Humans who can infiltrate your most secure facilities. Humans who can defeat your champions in single combat. The guards in the room began to back away from Jake. They had seen what he could do in the arena. They had watched him fight through their security. Now they understood that everything they had witnessed was just a small sample of human capabilities. Your invasion fleet is moving toward Earth right now, Jake said. But Earth Command has been warned. They know your ship positions, your attack plans, and your weaknesses. What you thought would be an easy conquest has become a trap. Jake activated a display screen that showed the tactical data he had gathered. Fleet movements, weapon specifications, command structures. Everything was laid out for the Corvani to see. I have learned that your entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force against inferior opponents. You attack species that cannot fight back effectively. You have never faced an enemy that could match your technology while surpassing your tactics. The ship's intercom crackled as other Corvani officers began responding to Jake's broadcast. Some demanded that he be silenced. Others asked questions about the accuracy of his information. A few began to sound worried about the invasion. Jake heard what he was waiting for, the sound of approaching spacecraft. Both human and Corvani vessels were converging on their location. My team has been conducting their own rescue operation, Jake announced. They tracked your ship using the same infiltration techniques I used to gather intelligence. Even now, they are boarding your vessel. Explosions echoed through the ship as human forces breached the hull in multiple locations. The lights flickered as power systems were damaged. Jake smiled for the first time since his capture. Elena looked at him with new respect. SEAL Team 6, that explains a lot. The door to the communication center opened. But instead of more Corvani guards, human soldiers entered. Danny Rodriguez, Lisa Carter, and Kevin Stone, Jake's original team members, led a squad of Marines through the doorway. About time you showed up, Jake said calmly. Danny grinned. We've been looking for you for 3 weeks. Had to follow your trail through half the Corvani fleet? The mission? Jake asked. Complete, Lisa replied. Earth Command received your intelligence. The invasion fleet walked into a trap. Admiral Chune's forces were waiting for them. Jake felt relief wash over him. The mission had succeeded. Earth was safe, but he was not finished with the Corvani yet. He turned back to the communication system. Admiral Zektar, you wanted to know what kind of soldier I really am. Now you know. But I represent just one human warrior. Earth has thousands. Like me, tens of thousands. Special forces operators trained to fight in any environment, against any enemy, under any conditions. The Admiral struggled to sit up. His face showed a mixture of pain and growing fear. This changes nothing. We are still stronger than you. Jake knelt down beside the wounded Admiral. Your strength is your weakness. You rely on size and numbers. You expect your enemies to be afraid. You have never fought an enemy that could think faster than you, move quicker than you, and adapt better than you? Jake stood up and addressed the ship again. The Corvani Empire has ruled through fear and overwhelming force. But fear works both ways. Today you learn to fear humanity. Not because we are stronger than you, but because we are smarter than you. Reports came in over the ship's communication system. The Corvani invasion fleet was retreating. Human forces had destroyed or captured dozens of warships. The surprise attack had become a devastating defeat. Other Corvani commanders were calling for Admiral Zektar. They wanted to know how the humans had known about their plans. They wanted to understand how their weak enemy had turned the tables so completely. Jake answered for the Admiral. You underestimated us. You thought capturing one human soldier would give you intelligence about our capabilities. Instead, you gave that soldier access to your most classified information. You thought you were interrogating a prisoner. You were actually briefing a spy. Korvik, who had been quietly working at the computer console, looked up at Jake. The quantum transmitter logs show that Earth Command has been receiving regular intelligence updates for 2 weeks. You have been sending them information this entire time. Jake nodded. Every interrogation session gave me new intelligence. Every day in your prison taught me more about your weaknesses. You were so confident in your superiority that you never considered the possibility that your prisoner was playing you. Admiral Zektar's face showed complete defeat. Impossible. You were tortured. You screamed. You begged. I am trained to resist torture. I'm also trained to use it as a cover for intelligence gathering. You told me everything I needed to know because you were proud of your strength. Pride is a weakness that can be exploited. The rescue operation was complete. Jake's team had secured the communication center and were preparing to evacuate all human prisoners. The Corvani crew was in chaos, receiving reports of defeat after defeat. Jake made one final announcement. The Corvani Empire has learned an important lesson today. Humanity is not a species of weak prey. We are a species of apex predators. We do not surrender, we do not break. We adapt, we overcome, and we win. He looked directly at Admiral Zektar. You wanted to conquer Earth. Instead, you have given us detailed intelligence about your entire military structure. You have shown us your weaknesses. You have taught us how to defeat you. As human forces evacuated the prisoners, Jake stood over the defeated Admiral. This war is over before it began. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is scattered. Your empire now knows that humanity is not an easy target. The ship shuddered as human vessels prepared to tow the crippled flagship. Jake picked up his gear and prepared to leave. Tell your people, Jake said to Admiral Zektar, that they met a Navy SEAL today. Tell them that Earth has thousands more. Like me. Tell them that if they threaten humanity again, we will not be so merciful. Jake Morrison walked out of the communication center, leaving behind a broken enemy and a safer galaxy. The mission was complete. Earth was protected. And the Corvani Empire had learned that some prey fight back.